So Jim, how are you enjoying the convention so far?
No, it's a rocking show. I love being up here, but you know we're in a casino environment now. We don't usually do that at comic book conventions, so it's a little offbeat, trying to make the most of it.
Do you do any gambling?
Not that I want to talk about in public.
Fair enough. So I mean, you do a lot of these shows, right? How many do you do a year, would you say?
Over the last couple of years, I think I've done 15 or 16 shows a year.
It's impressive.
Since the beginning, I think I've done well over 300 shows around the world.
So why is this important? Why do comic book artists and writers come to these events?
Well, important is a word that you would use. I think it's important for me, personally, because it's an opportunity to interact with fans and friends that I've known for a while, and also to make and meet new people, new fans and friends along the way. And many of them I find run the complete range. Some of them are octogenarians. They read the books, you know, when they came out, bought them off the stands. But I think they're outnumbered by new, young kids that are just getting into it. They've just discovered the material, never saw it before, and some of them say they're having the time of their life with those books.
So I would say that you revolutionized comic books in the 1970s.
Really? Tell me more.
Well, with Nick Fury, I would say in particular, you know, that changed the comic book landscape. What was it like working on Nick Fury, and what was the reaction that you got at the time when those books came out?
Well, the most immediate reaction was from my peers and my bosses at Marvel. I can tell you that almost every new and different idea, I call them innovations, that I brought in literally was a minor altercation or a fight about it, because Stan knew what was commercial. He is the quintessential editor, and I continued to break the rules. That's what innovations and ideas are about. And whenever I'd break those rules, I'd get a comment from Stan like, "Oh my God, Jim, why can't you just do it like Kirby or Romita?" Well, the reason is there's only one Jack Kirby.
Right.
And it would be an offense to even copy his work and try to be Kirby, because he's the warrior god of comics and the rest of us aren't. All I could be is myself. And the backstory is that at that time when I got into comics, I was an art director at an ad agency with a big salary. When I got into comics, virtually lint, chump change by comparison. Now, I kept that job for a while. I also had a secondary job playing rock and roll. From the time I was 18 to 30, I worked the tri-state area in the Northeast, playing 3, 4, 5 jobs a night, every night, sometimes out of town, often out of state. So at that time, I was doing a comic book a month, full-time job, working at the ad agency 8 to 5, full-time job, playing 3 to 5 nights a week. It's a full-time job.
It's impressive.
Work was a 4-letter word.
So, again, Nick Fury was really something that changed comic books, and then you worked on Captain America as well. How was working on Captain America different than Nick Fury?
It was very different. For one thing, when I was just a kid, little kid, reading comics, Captain America was my favorite character. How can you not love America's super patriot?
Right.
And when I did him, he was my favorite character. And to this very day, right now, he's still my favorite character. As you may know, I did 12 variant Captain America covers for Marvel last year. So, still working on that character. The the nostalgic quality of developing and making charting part of Captain America's legend was a very fulfilling thing for me. I only did 3 issues of Cap, but I think they changed the nature of how the character was perceived along the way. Back in, maybe that was the late 60s, 68, I did The Death of Captain America. Remember, they did it again, you know, like 40 years later.
Right.
So I think I was 40 years ahead of my time.
I would say so.
Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., was done in a kind of like pop art style. Comic books are very embracing. I think you can get away with almost anything, and if it doesn't work, you get it right the next month. It's as simple as that. So the idea of experimenting, particularly with that strip that was very open and liberal for new ideas, was a natural for me. Captain America had a more well-developed format, more rigid, because Captain America had a significant history, and those are guidelines that we had to maintain. But S.H.I.E.L.D. was all new. If you remember, Nick Fury started as the leader of the Howling Commandos. You know, he was in World War II.
Yep.
Along the way, Lee and Kirby decided to make him the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. And in those early books, he was like a foxhole commando. He had wrinkled clothes and 5 o'clock shadow and a stub of a cigar. I mean, he looked like Boxcar Willie on crack. So the first thing I did when I took over was I took him to my barber. I shaved him. I took him to my tailor. I gave him some good threads, and I even gave him my apartment. You remember in one of my books I did a 1-page love scene with the Countess?
Right.
No words.
Right.
No words, because some woman told me a long time ago, Jim, there's a time for words and a time for silence. And she was right. And I used it in that particular page. So I think I had the opportunity to develop a certain kind of characterization in Nick Fury. I can tell you this, and maybe most people don't realize it. You would not like to spend the night hanging out with Nick Fury, because it would probably end with you in a hospital. He's a very dangerous guy. Don't go there if you don't have to.
So again, you know, you've worked on a lot of comic books over the years, a lot of different characters. Are there any characters who you didn't get the chance to work on who you would have liked to have?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that question, because over the period of 30, 40 years, I have developed over 100 characters which I keep in my theater of concepts. And I'm hoping one by one at this point to bring them to life in comic books, TV, and digital games, and maybe in film.
Awesome, yeah, fans would love that, I have to say, speaking as a fan.
Keep an eye out for them, and when we get to that point, you get the first interview.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time today, sir. It is an honor.